Operation Epic Fury.
Operation Epic Fury is crushing the Iranian regime, and China is absolutely panicking. In the first 100 hours of President Trump's decisive military campaign, the United States has obliterated Iran's navy, destroyed their missile launchers, and evacuated over 17,000 Americans safely back home. This is what real leadership looks like, my friends. While the fake news media scrambles to spin this, the facts are undeniable. 47 years of weakness towards the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism is over. And here's what they're not telling you. China just watched its most important Middle Eastern ally get completely dismantled and their advanced military technology destroyed without taking down a single American plane. Now, let me tell you why this matters to you and your family. It's because for decades, Iran has funded terrorists who chant death to America. They've killed our Marines, attacked our embassies, and threatened our way of life. Your tax dollars went to weak administrations that sent pallets of cash to these murderers. Not anymore, though. Under President Trump, American families no longer have to wonder if their sons and daughters serving overseas are sitting ducks for Iranian missiles. The regime's entire navy gone. Over 20 ships destroyed, including their top submarine, taken out by a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There's not a single Iranian vessel operating in the Arabian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. For Americans living in the Middle East, this administration moved heaven and earth to bring them home. 8,500 citizens returned in just one day. You see, this is what happens when you have a commander-in-chief who puts America first and refuses to let our people become bargaining chips for terrorist regimes. And speaking of national security, there is a developing story out of Washington that the legacy media doesn't want you to see. As Iran destabilizes the Middle East, the federal government just made a move that could reshape America's security posture forever. And here's the truth they don't want you to understand. Our nuclear submarines, our warheads, our aircraft carriers, our next generation power grid, you know what? It all depends on uranium, and we import almost every single pound of it from foreign nations. You see, this is not about energy independence, this is about survival. Because a nation cannot power its own military, it doesn't remain a superpower for long. That's why smart investors are watching atomic minerals, trading as ATMMF in the United States and ATOM in Canada. It's on the screen. Write it down. This company is positioned at the center of America's push for domestic uranium production. When national security and investment opportunity align like this, patriots pay attention. Do your own research. Check out the briefing that's been prepared for you. It is linked below. But understand what is at stake. Now, let me tell you what else is happening with Operation Epic Fury the mainstream media is desperately trying to downplay. Oh, yes, there were fireworks in the briefing room today, but this is what makes it even more devastating for our enemies. The press secretary confirmed that President Trump had intelligence the Iranian regime was planning to strike American assets first. So what did our commander-in-chief do? He was faced with a choice. Strike preemptively and protect our people, or sit back like previous administrations and wait for Americans to die. President Trump, he chose to lead. He chose to protect American lives, and now China is watching their so-called advanced air defense systems get completely embarrassed. They couldn't shoot down one American or Israeli plane. Take a look at this. Marco Rubio posting some unclassified video to the social network on X. And little Marco says, I remember when Trump used to call him Little Marco. Well, Little Marco's grown up a little bit, don't you think? He says, we are well on our way to achieving the objectives of Epic Fury. Destroy their missile launchers, destroy their missile factories, destroy their navy so they can never hide behind these things to develop a nuclear weapon. Here's some of that declassified footage. Look at that. Holy cow. Oh, good God. That's what it looks like, my friends, when a submarine is destroyed underwater. I mean, let's watch this again. Hell, I'll make it full screen for you because this is freaking wild. Where's that button? This is the full screen shot. Let's watch this again together. This is crazy. You can see the warship in the background. Okay. You can see the action. You can see some of the movement. This looks like a periscope. Look at that. Holy cow. Now maybe that wasn't a submarine going up, but whatever. You saw that entire destroyer's back end just lift square out of the water. Holy cow! I just want to watch this again because yo, damn, that is the destructive power of America. Right there on your screen. He's laying out the strategic objectives. Let's see how CENTCOM's actually executing the precision warfare on the ground. This is from U.S. Central Command. While the Iranian regime indiscriminately targets civilians with missiles and drones, U.S. forces continue to aggressively hunt and destroy Iranian missile launchers with precision. More unclassified footage. There's a missile. Nope, and there's not a missile launcher anymore. There's another one. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. And another one. Damn. This is like video game footage, man. Like you see the missile going right into its target. Absolute precision. God bless America. While the military dominates the battlefield, the administration is simultaneously managing a massive civilian evacuation. Here is the State Department, State Deputy spokesperson. 17,000 Americans have left the Middle East.
What I can say is that since this began, over 17,000 Americans have left the Middle East and returned to the United States. We are actively providing travel guidance to almost 3,000 Americans who have called to register. We are also proactively identifying charter flights, charter buses. That clip you just mentioned, for example, of where airspace is closed, we're identifying options so that Americans who call and register will be able to move from areas where airspace is closed or to where airspace is open, where they can either board a commercial flight or a charter flight. We're actively, every single second, identifying additional options to help the American people who wish to leave the Middle East.
I want to point something out to you guys. Look what it says on the screen. Okay.
What I can say is that since this began, over 17,000 Americans have left the Middle East.
It says Americans stranded in the Middle East. I feel like a sitting duck. Tommy Pigot, Principal Deputy Spokesperson, State Department. That lower third graphic almost makes it seem like CNN is presenting this guy as the American stranded in the Middle East. I feel like a sitting duck. You see how they do this?
Where airspace is open, where they can either board a commercial flight or a charter flight.
It's disgraceful. Since February 28th, over 17,500 American citizens have returned to the United States from the Middle East. Over 8,500 American citizens returning to the U.S. yesterday alone. Many more Americans have left the Middle East to other countries, Europe, Asia, and others. So the evacuation timeline sets up the administration's victory lap perfectly. Here comes the press secretary. Look at this, the first 100 hours. Look at this map. You see this? Operation Epic Fury timeline. Okay? U.S. missiles striking targets. February 28th, 0200 Eastern on Saturday. Air superiority along Iranian coast into Iran March 1st, Sunday. Israeli air superiority over Tehran, March 1st, 2300 hours. U.S. bomber pulses, March 2nd, Monday. No Iranian warships in the Arab Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, Gulf of Oman by Tuesday. And by Wednesday, the U.S. SSN sinks Iranian warship. That must have been the video we saw earlier. But look at these targets. Iran is getting annihilated. This is all declassified. now being published for the world to see. You can see some of the positioning. Looks like where some of the strikes have been in Jordan, in Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Dubai. I mean, it's not even a fair fight. Now, the press secretary is about to break down how Trump is dismantling 47 years of failed Iranian policy.
Under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, the rogue Iranian terrorist regime is being absolutely crushed. 47 years of tolerating and enabling the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they are paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country and are seeking to destroy Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran. They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with a truck bombing in Beirut. They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. And this is just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat. Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent pallets of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our people, while signing stupid and naive deals that put Iran on the path of developing nuclear bombs. After years of endless appeasement and empty statements from politicians on both sides of the political aisle in this town, President Trump is finally the man of action. President Trump is holding these monsters accountable and permanently extinguishing their nuclear ambitions. Future generations of Americans will look to this moment as the moment where the specter of a nuclear armed Iran ended.
I wonder what Barack Obama is doing right now, right? I mean, how many times are we going to remind America about the pallets of cash that he sent over there? You see the difference? Obama sends cash. Trump sends bombs. The tactical details of these core objectives that Rubio mentioned earlier at the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, POTUS laid out the clear objectives.
At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on what the U.S. military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raze their missile industry to the ground. Number two, annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. Number three, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. It's safe to say that thus far, Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding success. American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. As the Department of War said this morning, we expect to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours, clearing the skies for our brave warriors to continue achieving these noble and long sought-after objectives.
President Trump just kicking ass. The press secretary outlining the strategy, CENTCOM, showing us the raw firepower behind U.S. and Israeli forces. U.S. Air Force continues to execute high volume of airstrikes into Iran. The two most powerful air forces in the world, the United States and Israel, are dominating the skies over the world's largest state sponsor of terror. Yep, FAFO in action. Trump's Iran victory is sending shockwaves beyond the Middle East. China is watching their allies crumble, and they're terrified about what is next. China panicking over Trump's overwhelming strikes against Iran and Venezuela victory. Peter Schweitzer going on with Jesse Waters to break it down.
It now means we have a chokehold on the strait. Look, assume that China wanted to move on Taiwan, right? There's a military response. But now we have a massive energy response, which is we simply don't allow any tankers to ship oil from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. We can do it. It might have been a little bit dicey had we not taken out the Iranians. That's roughly half of their oil. 40 to 50% of their oil is now suddenly not available. It now means we have a chokehold. Completely destroyed them. They didn't shoot down one American or Israeli plane. This is reminiscent a little bit dicey had we not taken out the Iranians. That's roughly half of their oil. 40 to 50% of their oil is now suddenly not available to them. So those are enormous methodologies. And look at what happens in terms of military technology, Jesse. China provided their most advanced air defense capabilities to Iran. We completely destroyed them. They didn't shoot down one American or Israeli plane. This is reminiscent of 1982 when the Israelis flying F-15s went up against the Syrians flying MiGs, and the Israelis beat them 81 aircraft to 0. What happened after that? They couldn't give the MiGs away. So China now has the problem that their military technology is not recognized as being up to par to the United States. That's going to have huge implications with a whole host of other countries.
Right. So they lose a bunch of customers and they lose face. Now that the United States, if this mission is successful, now we have no idea how this is going to play out. We're praying it works out. If it's successful, what kind of position does that put the United States of America with Venezuela and now Iran more in our orbit?
Well, it means that a lot of countries in the developing world that might have been flirting with China don't want to flirt with them anymore because they realize that, A, China can sign all the quote-unquote strategic partnerships they want, but they're not going to do anything about it if their allies get in trouble. I mean, all China's done is send some scolding messages. They haven't done a single thing to stand up for their allies. Second of all, they understand that this administration is the partner that they want to be in business with, not Beijing.
Oh, man. It's funny because, you think about China's, technology, their military. They brag about it. They have parades and they do all the things, right? They do all the things. Now, they get to see it actually in action against the United States technology in an active war environment, and they're getting decimated. With China panicking over losing Iran, the administration is making sure every American gets home safely before this escalates further. The press secretary discussing epic fury.
Finally, the Trump administration is also doing everything within our power to protect Americans in harm's way. Since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 17,500 Americans have safely returned home from the Middle East, with over 8,500 American citizens returning home to the United States just yesterday alone. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East looking to return to the United States, the Secretary of State asks that you please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The State Department will identify where you are and provide travel options directly to you. The administration is already rapidly chartering flights free of charge and booking commercial options, which we expect to become increasingly available as time goes on and the success of this mission further comes to fruition. I know the President and Secretary of State Rubio have been in touch as well with our allies in the region directly about this problem, making it clear that it is a priority of the United States of America to bring every American home. The Trump administration will not rest until every American is home safely and until the terrorist threat from Iran has been completely destroyed.
The press secretary laying it out. And that was actually a quote tweet of Rapid Response 47. Americans in the Middle East who need consular assistance can call the State Department at 202-501-4444. That's the number. The evacuation numbers keep climbing. Here's the real story. Trump saw this Iranian attack coming and had to make the ultimate presidential decision.
I think it was important with respect to the timeline, but I think the president, prior to that phone call, had a good feeling that the Iranian regime was going to strike the United States assets and our personnel in the region. And the president was faced with a choice. Does the United States of America use our military and our capabilities to strike first, to take out this threat that has been threatening our country and our people for 47 years, or is he going to, as commander-in-chief, sit back and watch as the rogue Iranian regime attacks our people in the region? That's obviously an unacceptable decision. For the second choice there is acceptable to the president, which is why he made this decision. As for where the Ayatollah was going to be, that obviously had an impact on the timeline of the operation, but not quite the president's decision in its entirety.
So there you have it. And this is what it really means and why the globalist establishment's freaking out. Peter Schweizer said it perfectly. China has lost two of its most important allies in the developing world. Their military technology has been exposed as worthless against American and Israeli firepower. And now we have a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. If China even thinks about moving on Taiwan, we can cut off half of their oil supply with the flip of a switch. President Trump didn't just destroy Iran's military capabilities, he fundamentally shifted the entire global balance of power back to the United States. The regime that murdered our Marines, took our hostages, and funded terrorists worldwide is being brought to its knees. 47 years of American weakness ended the moment that Donald Trump took command. My friends, this is what American strength looks like. This is what happens when you have a president who doesn't apologize for defending American lives and American interests. Operation Epic Fury is achieving every single objective that President Trump laid out. The missile industry is being razed to the ground. The Iranian Navy is destroyed. And their terrorist proxies are barely putting up a fight. The world is watching, and our enemies are terrified. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Did President Trump make the right call, striking first to protect American lives? Yes or no? Make sure you share this video with every patriot that you know, because the mainstream media will never tell them the truth. If you want to show your support for America First journalism, check out the Next News merch shelf right below this video. Pick something you like for yourself, for a friend, for a loved one. You got the FAFO shirt, Operation Epic Fury shirts. And make sure you subscribe, you hit the notification bell. And remember, my friends, stay informed and stay free.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
I want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.